'cause we don't win. Don't give us the buzz. Don't give us your stink eye. We try our best and we're successful. Come watch our show at River Sponsors. It's time to start. Enjoy the show.
Oh, welcome aboard, everyone, to Betting Weekly Live. It's Friday, the 27th of June. You're with Steve Wyss and Ruairidh Barlow. That was a very, very calm intro, Rory, wasn't it? I must say I've not heard that one for a while. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. But how are you doing today?
Yeah, not too bad. It's enough to kind of whisper me into sleep on this kind of hot Friday afternoon. But yeah, I'm not too bad at all. I was at an event last night celebrating Real Oviedo's promotion. There's a player there, the president was around, lots of cider being poured. I don't know if people are familiar with Asturias, but they have this thing where they pour the cider up from up here into a glass kind of behind them, and it's all very fun and fancy and entertaining to watch. So yes, I'm good, Steve. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. At Real Oviedo, that's the final promotion back up to spot up to La Liga. That is really late how it's decided. It's nearly July. I mean, what are they playing at? I mean, how long is the playoff system there for
That's the question we always ask the kind of presidents and players is, so you've got about 3-4 weeks before you're back in pre-season. How are you managing this turnaround? But yeah, it goes on a long time. There's 2 legs for both the semi-finals and the finals, so ends up being a good kind of 3-4 week playoff system, which is quite good if you want to kind of tune into some kind of quite intense club football beyond the end of the European season. But yes, for the players, I can imagine it's a bit of a pain in the arse.
Stay up or go down. Instant reaction to their promotion, Rory. What's Real Oviedo going to do next season? Gun to head.
I have a feeling. Obviously, it slightly depends on recruitment, but I have a feeling they might just stay up just because it's been so long. It's been 24 years since they've been out. They've been down to the 4th tier. They've been close enough to going out of business 2 or 3 times. So yeah, I think Oviedo, the sensation, the kind of boost they've got from this promotion, I think they've got quite decent owners in charge as well. I think they might just stay up. But in La Liga, it always feels like you're competing as much against yourself as you are against kind of 3 other teams being worse than you rather than being good.
I think Duncan's right. There is no close season anymore. It just roll on and on and on, even for the mainstream leagues. But welcome in Andrew Hart. He is liking Flamengo, draw double chance against Bayern. We're going to be talking about that match soon. Good to see Daniel Lucani, Duncan Evans, Ming Chung as well. If you're watching live or on demand, we're going to be going through the 4 matches at the Club World Cup for this weekend. And also we're talking about Real Madrid with Rory on the show. If you're new to the channel, please do consider hitting the subscribe button. We're really getting closer to 10,000 subscribers. We'd love to get there sooner rather than later. And the likes, keep up the likes, guys. You really listened to me the last few days. Thank you so much for liking all the recent Betting Weekly Live shows. It's greatly appreciated. I think we've got about 100 for the last 3, which is a lot more than we've been getting. So keep those likes up. Club World Cup, Rory, I think it's fair to say that it's getting serious, proper serious now. You know, the group stage, I think initially there was always a few out there kind of laughing at it a little bit with some of the teams involved. I think it's fair to say several sides have been a pleasant surprise and managed to sort of silence some critics. But this is when it does get really serious. The knockout round, the last 16, and we've got loads of really interesting contests to talk about. But first and foremost, we've got to look into the futures market. Manchester City, after what was an excellent performance against Juventus yesterday, and now the clear favourites to win, plus 275. And then you've got PSG have drifted out to plus 335, Real Madrid plus 500, Bayern at plus 700. And I think the main reason for this is PSG, Real Madrid and Bayern Munich are in the same half of the draw. So Man City wouldn't face either of them until the final. As often happens with these tournaments, you end up with a little bit of a lopsided draws that people don't foresee. Man City in the driving seat right now. Rory, would they be the bet for you? If I had to give you a free $50 bet, who would your outright be on?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to look past City in some senses, because you look at the performances they put in. They obviously gave Juventus a bit of a hiding yesterday. But having said that, I mean, this is not the best Juve side in the world. And I think with this Club World Cup, what makes it so interesting from a betting angle at the very least, and thank you, Brendan, for the welcome, is that you've got kind of 3 or 4 different sides that are kind of starting again. Real Madrid, City are amongst those. PSG and Bayern have got a bit more continuity. You look at those 4, and I think you have to say that those 4 are the clear favourites. I would say Bayern, you could kind of maybe even shump off that list. You could cut them out a wee bit as well. I'm not sure I have faith in Bayern to win this, but any of those 3 sides if you catch them on the right day, they could probably win any game. So yeah, I think those 3 are probably the favourites for me. City have a big advantage because of the side of the draw they're on. But yeah, Real Madrid again, the ones that we'll obviously come on to, I think they're quite difficult to assess before we've seen them. Kylian Mbappe in the side, who's been ill with the virus. So yeah, there's quite a lot of moving parts in this. But for me, PSG, you have to look at them and say, if you include the Champions League final, they're the side that's still play the best football for me.
Yeah, I think the bottom half of the draw is very difficult to attack now because, whoever makes the final from that section more than likely would have been involved in some really difficult games. So some might question what they're going to have left in their tank. The top half is interesting. Manchester City, obviously, fair enough after yesterday's performance and in the section they are. But I think that top quarter, which involves the likes of Palmeiras, Botafogo, Benfica, Chelsea, one of those sides will be a semi-finalist. And I think they would be looking at. I know Benfica, Will White's on them, made a good case for them pre-tournament. And then of the 2 Brazilian sides, Palmeiras, Botafogo, you can get Palmeiras at 25-1, Botafogo at 40. So that's maybe the section I would look at because I do quite rate both of them Brazilian sides, and Benfica and Chelsea are no mugs. But the outright market has become a bit distorted because of the sections of the draw now. But we're going to talk about all these, the first 4 games of the weekend. Andrew Hart says Canada plus 500 for the Gold Cup. That tournament, of course, now is at its quarterfinal stage. USA, Canada, Mexico, Panama, all in 4 different matches. It could line up for a really tasty looking semi-final lineup for the Gold Cup, which we will discuss next week on Betting Weekly Live. But the first match of the weekend in the Club World Cup is Palmeiras against Botafogo, an all-Brazilian matchup. Talked with Nathan Joyce about this game yesterday. He personally believed that Botafogo were overpriced here. The wrong odds, he said. This should be a pick'em game overall. Also advised up 0-0 for the game. This could be one of my strongest bets of the entire tournament so far, actually, Rory. I really do like under 2 Asian goals. Yeah, under goals for me. I'm going to take under 2 Asian goals at -104. But for those who want to keep it simple, it's not often I would advise this, but -200 for under 2.5 goals, I think, is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But I'm interested to see how you see this game. It's going to be played, obviously, 12 p.m. local time. So that's quite a big factor, I think, to consider here. Early kickoff, they say never bet on it when it's over in the UK, but it's in Philadelphia. It's been pretty hot over there. 2 Brazilian sides familiar with each other. What's your assessment and analysis?
Yeah, that's a good point. When you look at the unders, that midday kickoff is going to be problematic if you're a player trying to run around in that heat and humidity. It depends what temperature it is, obviously, but it's likely to be very hot. And I think you've seen it. I think that's another of the kind of difficult to decipher factors of this tournament, because even Real Madrid, who looked quite good against Salzburg last night, you saw there's 20-minute period in the second half where they just legs looked completely gone and they were kind of sat on the edge of their own box for a while. So yeah, that heat, the stamina, the fatigue, obviously for these European sides is something to take into account. Obviously not in this game. I think it's an interesting one. The one that Nathan obviously kind of has a bit more of an insight into this, being an expert in that. So make sure you go check out the show if you're going to have a look at this game. But for me, the interesting thing was looking at the head-to-head results of this. Only in one of the last 7 games between these two, dating right back down to kind of November 2023, have Palmeiras got the better of Botafogo. So that's something to consider for me. I think if you look at that game as well, it was 4-3. It finished to Palmeiras. They needed to win the league, I think, on that game. and Botafogo managed to get someone sent off and miss a penalty during that game as well. So a lot went against them in that match. It was at Palmeiras home as well. So I think Botafogo are kind of the lean for me. I'm not going to get my feet wet in this game, but I think the lean for me is Botafogo outright. I think they're priced up at about plus 116 when I looked earlier. I need to double check the odds, but yeah, just the head-to-head between these two, I think is something to take into account because they're two sides that know each other well. Palmeiras, they've looked good in stretches, but I'm still have my doubts about Vitor Roque as a forward, basically, as somebody that's going to score the goals for them. And I've been quite impressed with Botafogo too. I watched them against Atleti, and I know they lost 1-0, but they only needed to avoid being beaten by 3 goals. So that kind of informed their game plan. They looked obviously very good against PSG. Luis Enrique said they were the side that best defended PSG all season, which is pretty high praise. And I quite like their striker as well. Igor Jesus has looked quite good to me. And I think Atleti, even that game, you look at it, and Atleti did get the goal in the end. They did miss some chances on the way to it, but Oblak had to make 2 or 3 really, really good saves to keep Botafogo out. So yeah, I'm narrowly siding with Botafogo. I think this game is too tight. Nathan said it was a pick'em. I agree with that. I think this could go right down to the wire and either way. But yeah, Botafogo to qualify. I think that was where my lean was looking at, about plus 116, plus 106.
Plus 120 now.
Plus 120 now.
And if it is a pick'em, if it's a genuine pick'em, if that's fair, plus 120 on Botafogo to qualify is too big, simply based on value. So I agree with you on that selection there. For me, it's unders all the way. I mentioned yesterday about the lack of shots on target conceded from Botafogo. They just seem really awkward. Remind me a bit of what Atletico Madrid used to be like under Simeone before they were a bit more expansive. You know what I mean? Just awful to face. A great head-to-head record, like you said. Unbeaten in the last, 5 against Palmeiras. 0-0 draw between the two sides earlier this season. I mean, when all's said and done, Palmeiras, all they've beaten here is Al Ahly. They couldn't beat Inter Miami. They couldn't beat Porto. All right, they look quite good. They're a decent side, don't get me wrong. But I think Botafogo's way more impressive what they've done against PSG. And, the Atletico, again, he really hung tough against, one of still a decent European superpower. I also think halftime tie is worth looking at here, by the way, for those who do bet on the halftime market. Minus 103 for the tie at halftime, more than likely 0-0. But sometimes just keep it simple. And, Nathan did put up the 0-0 score as a possible here in 90 minutes. And, I'd agree with him there. So, we've got some pretty strong thoughts on this game. Botafogo, we definitely think are overpriced. Just looking through here, Grazia says he took Man City to win the Premier League at plus 310 halfway through the match last night. So, but this is what it's all about. Sometimes you've got to take value. For me, Man City in the Premier League are just, I can't touch them because of the off the field thing. So who knows what's going to happen there? But I'll tell you one thing, on the field, that was the best I've seen them play in a significant game for quite some time. So I get why those are looking at it. And I think Juventus might be in for a decent season themselves, actually. So it's a decent result for them. Giggle Tune's good to see you as well. And Real Brandon King says it's going to be an interesting game. He's not a follower of either of the teams, but if the script follows Copa America style, under should be a lock. That's what I like to hear, Real Brandon King, because I'm going in hard on this under here. I don't want to see any goals at all. Well, I'll be on the cricket field, actually, so I won't be watched well unless it's an early finish. So I don't want to see any updates on my phone.
Unless you take 7 or 8 wickets early doors. See.
Yes. Well, you never know. I've known some matches that cricket matches get done in an hour or two. So we'll have to see how it goes there. Francois Texier is the referee for the game. Meninda, a very, very good European referee. He's top class. He's a French ref who I rate very, very. I actually think he could be a candidate to be the World Cup final referee next summer, as long as France are not in the final, of course, which is possible. I am taking under 2 Asian goals, Dave. But for those who prefer just a straight under 2.5, I think that's actually perfectly fine at minus 200. Sometimes decent minus money plays is still a value bet. It's as simple as that. Okay, let's move on to the second game on Saturday. This one is at 4 p.m. Eastern time, and the venue for the game is in Charlotte. It's going to be really hot again. I mean, that's one thing we've got to say about these early games, Rory. But Chelsea plus 110 favourites to win in 90 minutes. Benfica plus 255. The ties plus 240. I don't think anyone expected this matchup. It was set to be Bayern versus Chelsea, really, wasn't it? I feel like both teams really will fancy beating each other in this clash. It's maybe an open door here to get through to the next round. Benfica surprising everyone by beating Bayern Munich. Look good as an underdog. And this is it's a tough one, I think. I'm not entirely sure here. So, but you've got a play which is involving goals, but in different halves.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, Steve. So bear with me, all the watchers and listeners. Chelsea and Benfica under 1.5 goals in the first half, over 1.5 goals overall. So if you put that on the parlay, that gets you about even money back. I think that heat again is something that will inform this tie. I think it's also two teams that will play each other quite tight. I think Enzo Maresca said the one thing that I kind of noticed about them of late is that they take a little bit of time to get going. The only time they scored 2 goals in the first half of late really is against LAFC, and both those goals were in stoppage time. So I think Benfica will obviously play them a little bit tighter than Los Angeles will. I think, this Chelsea side, Maresca's quite good at making adjustments. We saw that in the Conference League final, where the second half he really kind of switched things about and caused problems for Betis. But in that opening half, I think his side tends to be a little bit more cautious, tends to keep the ball a little bit more and try and kind of work things out and break the other side down rather than necessarily finding the keys early on. And similarly, Benfica, as you saw them against Bayern, I think they were lucky not to concede against Bayern. It has to be said, Bayern had a goal disallowed that was fortunate from Benfica's point of view, because Harry Kane was kind of hanging around where the goalkeeper was, but I don't think the goalkeeper was actually going to get to it anyway. But they did play very well, Benfica, and I think they've looked quite good. If you look at, and now you're going to have to bear with me on what qualifies as kind of bigger opposition, but if you look at their games against teams that have a bit more firepower, Braga in this Club World Cup as well, not so much against Auckland City, obviously, but with the exception of that Boca game, I think it's in their last 6 games, only once has there been more than 1 goal in the first half. So yeah, bear with me on those complicated stats. But yeah, I think Benfica will also try and play this a little bit tighter. We know Portuguese sides are good in Europe, and they're good at kind of playing these ties. I've watched quite a bit of Benfica actually this season, just based on the Champions League. And they're a really good side. They do tend to miss 1 or 2 chances as well. But I think in the second half of this game, it will open up. I think one of these sides is going to be forced to go for it in the heat. That's when games tend to get broken down a little bit. They tend to stretch a little bit. So I think one of these sides will end up hitting the other on the counter in the second half. But I don't like it to be very open in that first half. And so yeah, under 1.5 goals in the first half, over 1.5 goals overall. Parlay that, get yourself even money back. And I think that's probably one of my safer bets for tomorrow or for this weekend.
That's a really interesting point. I think, of all the games I think we're talking about here, this will be the hottest possible thunderstorm, which means possible delays. Benfica, of course, the same venue. They just beat Bayern at 1-0, which, whether that means something, make your own mind up there. But I think that'll give them a nice familiar feeling. They won't have had to move around as much to get to the match. Good feelings about the win against Bayern. And I can't decide in this game. I've actually got no bet for the game, because part of me, when I'm looking at it, thinks that Benfica are a bet. And then other times when I look, I'm thinking Chelsea are a bet. And I look at the odds, and I think the odds are about set fair. So in which instance, I just can't really get involved. I think there's a case for both teams. I really do, both in terms of actual prediction, but also value. And this will depend how highly or lowly you rate either team. And I know those who have a Premier League model that rates Premier League sides really high probably might make Chelsea a bet here. Dave Clark's made a good point there. The odds for Chelsea might go down before kickoff. You'd be surprised if they drifted. If Chelsea odds do change, it probably is going to go down to even money or even minus money. But I can't get involved. I mean, the positive for me for Chelsea is the squad depth. I know Jackson's suspended and stuff, but they've been rotating the squad a lot. Benfica, canny. They've got some veterans in that squad who know the dark arts really well, experienced, and they've got momentum after that result against Bayern. So I don't know. I suppose if in doubt, go for the tie, right?
It's one of those as well. Like I look at it the same as you, kind of in the sense that I think both of these sides have good players, but on teams with flaws. And I think you look at that, especially with Chelsea. I mean, Cole Palmer, if he turns up and he decides that it's his day, then he wins the game for Chelsea. But whether that's going to happen, and same, you could say the same about Enzo Fernandez. They've got players in there that can win the game on their day, but you're never really quite sure what you're going to get from this Chelsea side in that regard. So I think this Benfica team, every time I've seen them play against a quote unquote bigger side, they've caused them issues. They've not always come away with the results. So yeah, it just depends on how much you rate Chelsea, because you look at it and say, well, I'd probably back Bayern over Chelsea as well. I'd back Bayern over some of the bigger sides that they've done quite well against. So yeah, there's swings and roundabouts to this one, and I think the result itself is quite hard to call just because of that. But I think that heat is going to be a pain Massive. For both sides in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, in which case, I mean, we're talking first half tie could be a possibility here, plus 118. The Asian total for the first half is at 1. You could go under 1 goal in the first half. And that is, I think, minus 118. I'm looking now. Yeah, minus 113. So you wouldn't lose anything as long as there was no more than 1 goal in the half. So you could look at that. I was looking at some player props for the game because there's 2 players I think are very, very much worth looking at. I mean, Angel Di Maria has been, he's one of the top scorers in the entire tournament, actually. And you can get him at plus 114 for a shot on target. This is a man on penalties. He'd be on key free kicks, and he's been getting into some good positions. I think that's a bet, really, isn't it? Plus 114 for a shot on target for Di Maria. And I don't know whether if you like these odds or not, but Liam Delap minus 182 for a shot on target. I do think he's got a point to prove right now. And he's got a great opportunity with Nicholas Jackson ruled out to stake his claim in the team. So I wouldn't be looking to ladder him or anything, because I think this 1 shot on target, this might not be a match with many goals in it or that many chances, really. But I do think those are the 2 standout players on either side for shots on target here. And the bet that you've got there, say under 1.5 first half goals, in addition to over 1.5 match goals in total, that's a minus 106 same game parlay. I don't think we've ever had that on the channel before, so new territory.
It's a bit of a roundabout bet, but there's logic behind it.
Duncan Evans, I fancy Benfica tomorrow. He's not convinced by Chelsea. Dave likes Chelsea. Real Brennan King says, I think Benfica will give Chelsea a go. I like the idea of an SGP. Double chances and under goals as well. The weather is going to be hot, and you have to check the weather. It's going to be the same next summer for the World Cup as well. Some of these early games in the World Cup, I might be honestly going under blind as long as there's not a serious mismatch, because I think it's quite clear. You need to have a lot of the ball as well. I think in next summer's World Cup, possession could be king. And Andrew makes a good point about the FFP, with Man City charges. Chelsea apparently have already recouped the whole fee that they paid for Liam Delap, 36 million. They've already got in prize money for this tournament, which I find that staggering. They've only just made the last 16. So, yeah, there's clearly a lot of money involved here. And, yes, for me, Liam Delap is better than Nicholas Jackson. Rory might have a soft spot for Jacko after his spell at Villarreal. I don't know. It's up for debate. Jackson does contribute a lot to the team in other ways, but the better finisher for me is Delap.
I don't understand why Chelsea spent money on it. I don't understand why they signed him when they did. They should have signed him a season or 2 down the line. But yeah, it's on it. The B is firmly in my bonus about signing La Liga talents before they're ready to go. And I get it, because there's so much competition. The market is so competitive now that as soon as a 19-year-old has half a good season, you kind of need to buy him because somebody else will. But yeah, Jackson was very much a victim of that, where he needed a season to kind of just get his boots in, get his kind of mileage in, and then he could have been a player for Chelsea. But yeah, you risk it when you bring in these players a little bit too soon for me.
Once a weather event has occurred, has anyone scored? The only match I can think of was Auckland against Benfica, where Benfica racked, but there was about an hour and a half delay there. It was almost like an entirely new game. But these are factors, It will play a part in next year's World Cup. That is for sure. Let's move on to Sunday's fixtures. Another early one, 12 p.m. Eastern. This is from Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Arena. The roof might be on here, not entirely sure. It's a different sort of environment, so heat perhaps is not such a big factor. Big mismatch in terms of the odds, minus 560 on PSG. The ties at plus 650 into Miami are a 12-1 shot in 90 minutes. And the goal line is seemingly out of control here now, edging towards 3.75, minus 117 for over 3.5 goals. Both teams score yes at minus 132. In the end, PSG have actually ended up with I think, quite an easy draw, really. I don't think you can ask for too much more. An MLS side in the last 16, even if it is Leo Messi, even if it is Inter Miami. And I know there's a lot of conspiracy about them being here and referees and all that sort of thing, but you can't argue against getting into Miami. It should be straightforward for PSG. So how do we find some winning bets on the game? Where do we find the value?
Yeah, I'm gonna annoy our producers, apologies here, because I'm going to change my pick, because I've just realized that the PSG is really not bringing you much value backing them at all. I was going to same game parlay them into over 3.5 goals PSG to win. That was coming back at about minus 110, but it's literally a difference of 0.003 now between backing PSG and over 3.5 goals and just over 3.5 goals. So go over 3.5 goals for me. That's about minus 117, minus 120 at the minute. And yeah, PSG are just a better side than Inter Miami. I don't think Inter Miami have enough. I've quite enjoyed watching Inter. I think they've been quite good value entertainment, but in that Palmeiras game, in their previous games as well, you saw that they have they're good at some very specific things. Leo Messi obviously can take a goal out of nowhere. He can find a pass out of nowhere. They have one or two kind of good players in the sense that Suarez, again, just kind of rolled back the years against Palmeiras for his second goal, but they're so kind of inconsistent. They've got so many kind of holes in their side. We've seen them have to kind of really sit back and try and be compact in the last half hour of games when Messi's flagging a little bit, when Tadeo Allende, who's a bit of a flyer out wide, he can kind of get behind, he has that pace. I just think PSG are going to crush them. I think PSG are too good for this Inter side, and I think if Inter are going to have to do a lot more defending, I think, in this game than they have in the previous 3 games. And I just think that PSG have the weapons to kind of really exploit that. And I think PSG, after kind of that kind of really bombastic start against Atletico Madrid, they've kind of lightened up again, obviously lost against Botafogo. They were a little bit more kind of temperate again in their last group game, but against Seattle Sounders. But I just think PSG, now that they're into the knockouts, will really kind of turn up the tempo again. And I think this Inter Miami side won't have enough to go with them. And you'll see kind of Messi and Suarez left up there to try and create things, and that will kind of unbalance the game more and more as PSG take the lead. And I think, yeah, PSG over 3.5 goals, I think they could cover it on their own. Inter Miami might get maybe they get a soft penalty. Maybe the referee helps them out a little bit. But yes, I think Inter might get 1 goal in this. PSG will inevitably score at least 3 in my view, but I think they'll probably cover it. I think it could be 4 or 5 for them. And that strength and depth is another thing. I mean, you look at it, Barcola, Doué, Kvaratskhelia, Dembele, they've just got so many different weapons that I think Inter Miami will really struggle. And I think, to be brutally honest, Inter Miami are facing a side that's much, much better than anything they've faced so far.
Yeah, I think Inter Miami we're very, very pleased to get to this stage. They are a bit of a darling of the tournament. I think FIFA would really love this match to be a cracker and be close. And sometimes I've sort of got a feeling that maybe something strange might happen here. I don't think PSG are in any danger. Don't get me wrong. I think they'll go through for sure. But it wouldn't surprise me if Inter Miami got a goal somewhere and maybe a decision or two along the line. You know, there's a lot of sort of old comrades against each other here as well, which could be something worth considering. I mean, I'm struggling for a bet. I've seen several suggestions out there. PSG win to 0. And actually, you're better off just taking both teams score no with Bet Rivers. It's actually better odds, minus 106 if you do like that. I just think Inter Miami have got a lot of individual players who can score out of nothing. PSG, if they are focused, they're not focused in certain periods of the game, they might give some chances away. But there is ultimately a huge golfing class. So, I mean, you think over 3.5 goals, then you think would be your bet for the game if you would take one, if or anything, or?
Yeah, that's my pick. I think
that's the pick.
I think PSG will cover this. To be honest, I think they will get at least 3 goals in my view, probably more. I do think Inter could have a goal in them, but if they don't, then that's probably a sign that PSG are just absolutely trouncing them. So yeah, I like them to cover that goal line. To be perfectly honest, I just think Inter Miami in their entire history will have never faced a side as good as this PSG team, and PSG are, for me, on their day, their best side in the world right now. So yeah, I just think PSG will trounce them, to be honest.
I do get what Andrew's saying with the comments there, and this is where you've got to look back on experience a bit. And these home nations can sometimes have, a lot of favours go their way. But it is one of those situations where the golf is so much. I don't think it's one of those where even if FIFA kind of wanted an Inter Miami run, it's just too much to ask, because if PSG are on it, they're miles too good. But I could see something like 3-1 here along the line. So, and I would lean over if I had to. I think if I was to take a bet for the game, this is only a slight lean. One of my favourite bets in PSG games is the first half handicap for them on a -1 handicap at -103, or the over 1.5 goals in the first half. But something's just telling me to not get too heavily involved here. Just a gut feeling,
That's fair. And
gut feeling.
If I can edge people over to my side on this, then I'll say that Luis Enrique, who found a lot of mismatches in the Champions League against sides he was playing, as I say, there are some players in that Inter Miami side that do not match up to the quality of other players in that Inter Miami side. And I can just see Luis Enrique zeroing in on them and saying, look, Usman, Kvicha, just fire in on these players and you will have the better of them every single time.
Inter Miami are the Kansas City Chiefs of the tournament. I know what you're coming from, real Brandon King, but just look at the Super Bowl. Like the golf was too much for even the Chiefs to deal with, and that ultimately probably will happen over the 90 minutes or longer potentially in this match. Good luck whatever you're taking.
I do like the comparison of Travis Kelce and Luis Suarez. Could Luis Suarez, Taylor Swift be the next thing? Or...
Luis Suarez and Travis Kelce is a comparison. I don't think you get that anywhere else, really, would you? There's some real veteran dogs, isn't there, in that Inter Miami squad? It's incredible, really. Legends, really, as well. Dave Clark saying PSG and under 3.5. That covers for a lot of scorelines. To be fair, Dave, 3-1s and you're winning 4-0, 3-0, whatever. Yeah, I can see that. That could be a popular bet. I mean, I'm guessing the odds there might be around, will probably be minus money, but not by too much. The last game on Sunday is Flamengo, Brazilian side, against Bayern Munich. This match is being played at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. Again, possible thunderstorms here, 4 p.m. local time. Kickoff. It really intriguing clash. I do wonder. I mean, Bayern Munich, I think, would have been better off facing Chelsea. I think they'd have, it's a more familiar opponent, things like that. Flamengo have been described as the best team in Brazil. Nathan Joyce said that yesterday again. I asked him, do they have a chance here? He's not sure. I think Bayern are a little bit too short here myself, Rory. This could be a surprise. Not saying Bayern are going to get knocked out, but at minus 141, I'm not going to get involved with them. If anything, I'm looking the other way. I think Flamengo could spring a surprise. What do you think?
Yeah, certainly I think this Bayern side are not one that I have a huge amount of faith in. I just, every time I've watched them, they can't really defend against good teams. If you look at, this will inform the pick that I'm going to fire at you in a minute, but if you look at the last 7 games they've played, if you include Boca, Benfica, and 5 of the top half Bundesliga teams that they played, in 6 of those 7, Bayern have conceded. Bayern, every time I look at them against good opposition, do concede chances, and I think that's part of the way they play. I think Vincent Kompany is partly factoring that in because he thinks that he has more firepower, and so he opens the games up a little bit more against the Brazilian side. That might be a rough tactic to take because I think Flamengo will use their weapons wisely. And And yeah, this Flamengo side, I'll give you the pick now. It's Flamengo over 2.5 shots on target, plus both teams to score on the same game parlay. That's at -109. Flamengo, if you go back 23 games, it's the last time they didn't cover over 2.5 shots on target. I know Bayern are better opposition, but as I've just said, I don't really have faith in their defense being that much better. If Flamengo do go down in this game, then I think they'll be forced to kind of throw things at Bayern. If Bayern are pushing, then obviously Flamengo will have the space on the break. I do think there is more likely to be earlier goals in this game than there is in some of the other ties, just because of the way that Bayern play. And yeah, you look at their last 3 games, Flamengo in this tournament, 4, 4, and 9 shots on target in those 3 games. I just think, yeah, Bayern are a team that I think are good, but don't have a defensive backbone, really. I've not seen it so far, at least against a good team. And Flamengo are a team that this is, chance to knock off one of the big guns, a chance to really kind of make their mark on this tournament. This is obviously the biggest team in terms of fans in South America. I think this could be a bit of a heavyweight slugfest, and I think it could be quite entertaining.
I mean, you mentioned there, Flamengo definitely have a lot of weapons. The likes of Gerson, Derasqueta, if I pronounced that one correctly. You got Luis Araujo, Plata. Yeah, we've got defenders who can chip in as well. This is the team that's top of the league in Brazil right now. Of their championship, just 1 defeat so far this season. You know, they need to be respected. And I think we're starting, I don't know, that Bayern Benfica game just didn't make any sense to me. Vincent Kompany rests his starters and then brings them all on at half time. Now, wouldn't you be better off starting with them and then getting a couple of goals ahead and then bringing them off? Or just rest them for most of the game, accept it. It doesn't make sense. And this is, for me, every time Bayern start to convince me, Vincent Kompany puts doubts in my head. And, you know, in the really big games, I've said it over the last season, how many really, really big games did Bayern win under Vincent Kompany? All right, twice against Leverkusen in the Champions League, I'll give them that. But not that many. And I don't know, whenever things start to go a little bit sour for Bayern, my finger's always pointing on Kompany. And, you know, do you trust him? Has he learnt enough in these big games? Because this is a big game. This is a really big game against, for me, a top opponent. Potentially the best team in South America. So Vincent Kompany, where are you on him? Is he going to learn his lessons?
He comes from Pep Guardiola stock, so as a manager, so that's probably going to have quite large influence on him. And Guardiola is, while he can adapt to different styles, he tends to be fairly stubborn on his kind of core ideas. And I think Kompany will have that ingrained. I think he'll look at this Flamengo side, and although he might plan for them being kind of dangerous as well, I think he'll look at that and say that this is not a side that we need to change the way we play for necessarily. So yeah, I do think the ingredients are there for an upset. I think if you're Flamengo, you'll look at that Inter tie in the Champions League and say, well, there's a recipe for us to go and beat this team. I think Flamengo will be so up for this game. I think they will see this as kind of game of the season for them. Potentially. So yeah, I think the ingredients are there for an upset. I like this to be quite a tight game. I think both teams will score in this game as well. I think both teams will have a shot. And whichever team does probably go out of this game, I think they'll probably look at it and say there was 1 or 2 chances that we left on the table.
5 of the 6 matches played at the Hard Rock Stadium in this tournament have ended draws. So that's interesting. 2 of them 0-0s, a couple of 2-2 draws in there as well. And I think the tie in 90 minutes is very possible here. I really like Flamengo plus 3/4 of a goal on the Asian handicap plus 0.75. I think in 90 minutes they can keep this close. I think there's doubts about Bayern. The one thing I will say with Bayern, though, I really, really like what I'm seeing from Michael Olise right now. I think this player is becoming seriously Rolls-Royce, Ballon d'Or potential in time. He's just absolute quality. And to score or assist from Michael Olise is plus 102. I think that's a big price. In a game where there could be a few goals, actually. I know it's going to be hot, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's goals in this match. And, he's one of the leading assist makers out there in the whole world. And he's shown he can score goals. And in this tournament, he's netted a few as well. So I think Michael Olise is the best player prop in the game. I'd much rather take him than Kane. at the moment. Kane isn't just probably not getting the chances that he wants at the moment. They're coming more from out wide. This is a good game. I think we'll get a lot of answers out of this one. Real Brandon King's nervous as a Bayern future backer and Kane goal scorer. I mean, I'm on Kane outright, and I don't really see it landing now unless they have to make the final and get involved in a shootout along the way.
If it makes you feel better, I was on Mbappe outright as the top scorer, so that's pretty problematic for me. But yes, I do agree with you on Elise. He's in that kind of mode where he seems to be able to glide past defenders in the same way that Doué, Lamine Yamal are doing so effectively right now. So yeah, I think Elise, if Bayern are to win this game, there's a good chance it comes from his inspiration.
Yeah, I think Andrew Hart makes a good point. Wouldn't surprise me, actually, if Bayern won this match in extra time. I'm kind of leaning that way as well. If they do show their extra experience and class, the fans, of course, are going to be right on Flamengo's side. It'll be a wild atmosphere for them. And yeah, I mean, we might get some thoughts on Monterrey as well, Real Brandon King. We are going to get some thoughts on Real Madrid against Juventus. This is Tuesday. 3 p.m. Eastern time. Juventus just took a right big battering, obviously, by Man City, a wounded animal there. Real Madrid minus 167 on the money line. You said they're really difficult to assess at the moment. Rory, they're out of that group stage now. They should have enough for Juventus overall, you would think. Minus 167. That's going to tempt quite a few in on the money line. Would that be a bet for you or not?
Yeah, I think Real Madrid will win this game, and probably in 90 minutes as well. As I say, they are quite hard to assess just because of the teething problems you have with installing a new system. I mean, Alonso switched to a back three against Salzburg. That's the first time he's done that. It's also the first time Real Madrid have played it in many, many years. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of moving parts for Real Madrid. Does Mbappe come to the side? How many minutes do you get from him? They've looked good in stretches. Their midfield is looking increasingly kind of hard to deal with. But defensively, I think they've got away with a few against Salzburg, against Al Hilal. They could have conceded a couple more as well. So there's a lot of factors going on with Real Madrid that I think it makes them quite hard to call. My instinct tells me that Real Madrid go through. My instinct is that there's probably 2 or 3 goals in this game as well. So that's probably where I would be looking at for it. Just on Sergio Ramos, shot on target. Sergio Ramos is never a miss for me as a bet. I think that's usually quite a good way to go about it, especially if, as mentioned, if he is on TV, he tends to get more shots on target.
Do you know what? Someone's mentioned Thiago Silva there. I remember in the first game, he completely shut down Garassi for Dortmund. I couldn't believe it. I mean, he must be not about 40 now, Thiago Silva, but he just kind of showed you how important positioning is, and sort of John Terry-esque in a way for marking and stuff like that. I mean, Sergio Ramos, they obviously the match here we're talking about now is Dortmund-Monterrey. They're dangling a carrot here, Bet Rivers, plus 195 for a shot on target for Sergio Ramos. I won't be able to help myself because he's just on everything, isn't he? Here we are, a penalty. He's even getting himself on free kicks, which is kind of absurd in a way. And if he scores one, he's getting a nice bonus.
He's a main character, Sergio Ramos. You cannot keep him out of the picture, whether it's a red card, whether it's a goal. Maybe it's just a shot on target in this case, but yeah, he will have a moment in this game where he is kind of front and center of the picture. I don't know what it will be, but you can't keep him out of the headlines. And he's terrific entertainment, it has to be said. Sergio Ramos, certainly one of the most entertaining defenders there's ever been since I've been around, at least.
Okay, well, just before we go, I've got to remind people about the Betting Weekly Insider, which is due into your mailbox today, and it's a Wimbledon special. We've been banging on about this all week, but if you haven't yet signed up to the Betting Weekly Insider, if you're new to the channel, this is very much worth your while signing up. It's totally free. We have 2 newsletters a week. The Insider's the main sort of release each Friday, and today, this Wimbledon special, picks from all the handicappers, fades, players to watch out for, stuff like that. And I would encourage people to watch the live show we had earlier this morning, which was a trio of Nigel, Rory, Giovanni, and Tim Dennis. They were going through the draw of Wimbledon right live and giving basically the best picks throughout it. And you can watch out for Game Bet Match as well. Sean and Nigel, that'll be coming out soon, along with the women's show with Nigel and Rory. So your Wimbledon content starts here on at Because We Win. The third Grand Slam of the season is right up on our doorstep, and we've got it completely covered here right throughout the 2 weeks until the final. And yes, if you're watching live or on demand, really would appreciate those likes again. Thank you so much for the last few days for doing that and subscribing to the channel. And Rory, what would be your best bet from the matches that we have discussed?
I like the Bayern Flamengo game. Maybe it's just because it's the most entertaining game in my view. But yes, Flamengo over 2.5 shots on target. Both teams to score -109. I think that's the most likely to come in of the 3 bets I've given you. Just because yes, that chronic lack of faith in Bayern will probably give them a clean sheet on Sunday. But yeah, I just don't have any faith in that backline.
I think that's a really big game for Bayern. If they come through it, I think that could actually, galvanize them for the next season and beyond. If they lose it, the same old gremlins, the same old question marks are going to come out with the manager, with the playing squad and stuff like that. So that's definitely probably the game I'm most looking forward to. But I am really looking forward to that first Brazilian game, not containing many goals. I want to see no goals in that game, Rory, and then Botafogo to win on penalties. That will do us nicely. That's got to be my best bet of the weekend, under 2 Asian goals. Palmeiras against Botafogo.
Could be a real Libertadores classic, that one.
Yeah, it could well be. Plenty of spice in it. And it's, as I say, best of luck to everyone, whatever you're taking over the weekend in the soccer world. Best of luck for the Wimbledon bettors as well. I know guys are getting stuck in to the outright futures now with that draw being made. And we're looking forward to more content next week on Betting Weekly Live, Betting Weekly Tennis Live, Monday through to Wednesday at Wimbledon as well. And coming up later today, of course, on the channel, Betting Weekly, Hardball, and Fast Break. So the action isn't quite done for the week yet on Betting Weekly Live. But as always, Rory, it was a total pleasure. Thanks so much for your insights into the game. And let's smash those winners, yeah?
Absolutely. Cheers, Steve. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, thanks to everyone for joining in. It's been an absolute, a lovely use of my hour on Friday.
Take care, everyone. Remember to gamble responsibly. And I'll see you next week on Betting Weekly Live on Monday. Dan Roebuck is back as well. So we can get ready to quiz Dan on how he's been seeing this Club World Cup. But take care, everyone, and have a great weekend. Goodbye.